reutilização inovador implementado à escala global. Antes de começar, explico o formato da sessão de hoje. A sessão é composta por uma apresentação pelo orador, que é seguida de um período de perguntas e respostas. Na parte de perguntas e respostas, os participantes poderão colocar questões ao orador, por escrito, utilizando a funcionalidade bate-papo, ou oralmente, solicitando a permissão para participar através da função levantar a mão. Os vossos microfones encontram-se desativados, mas iremos ativá-los no momento das perguntas e respostas para que possam colocar as vossas questões. A sessão de hoje vai ser realizada em inglês. E passo então a apresentar o nosso orador convidado e a entidade que representa. Connosco hoje temos Juan José Freijo, vice-presidente global de sustentabilidade e de assuntos governamentais na Brambles, que é a empresa-mãe da CHEP. Com a sua liderança, a empresa atingiu uma posição de topo em termos de sustentabilidade. Em 2010, a revista do Wall Street Journal indicou a Brambles como a empresa internacional mais sustentável. Reconhecido especialista em economia circular, Juan José Freijo lidera as parcerias globais da empresa em fóruns como a Fundação Ellen MacArthur, o Global Food Banking Network e o Global Compact das Nações Unidas. A CHEP ajuda a movimentar mais mercadorias para mais pessoas em mais lugares do que qualquer outra organização no planeta. Os seus paletes, caixotes e caixas formam a espinha dorsal invisível da supply chain global e as maiores marcas do mundo confiam na CHEP para ajudá-los a transportar os seus produtos de maneira mais eficiente, sustentável e segura. A CHEP atende principalmente as indústrias de bens de consumo, produtos frescos, bebidas, retalho e empresas industriais em geral. Emprega aproximadamente 11 mil pessoas. A CHEP possui aproximadamente 330 milhões de paletes, caixotes e caixas reutilizáveis, através de uma rede de mais de 750 centros de serviço, dando suporte a mais de 500 mil pontos de contacto de clientes para marcas globais. A CHEP faz parte do grupo Brambles e opera em aproximadamente 60 países, com as maiores operações na América do Norte e Europa Ocidental. E agora passo a inglês. Hello, Juan José. Thank you very much for being here with us today. And I'll leave the floor to you to share the great example of Brambles and CHEP as a circular business model and a reuse business model. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and obrigado. I really appreciate the invitation to this forum. I just sorry that I cannot be there face to face, but in these days, this is the way we share experiences amongst the members of the industry. I'm going to try to share my screen now, and hopefully that will work. Yep, can you see my screen? Perfect, great. Things are working. Okay, so yeah, it was 3 weeks ago when I was invited to this presentation, to this session about reuse, and it took for me just 1 second to say yes, I want to be there, because reuse is what we do in our company, and reuse is now a concept that everyone is talking about it. The industry, the NGOs, the governments, etc. But because it is the future, it is a fundamental concept, as I say here, for the circular economy. However, there is some misunderstandings with the concept of reuse because it is quite new to have reuse in practice, and also some challenges that I would like, from our experience, to share with you. So that is my intention, and again, thanks for the invitation. First of all, although Pedro, you have described us quite well who we are, I would like to explain why we are here today. I saw the attendee list in this presentation, and some of you know us very well because some of you are our customers, but for some others, probably not. You don't know us so well. So who are we? We are a company called CHEP, and CHEP has some services that belongs to a mother company called Brambles. Okay, so Brambles is the mother company and CHEP is the operational brand. And what we do, we believe we are a purely circular model. And what we do is we offer services on reusable packaging. And let me explain what this is. If you are in the supply chain, you probably want to move goods across the supply chain. And in order to do that, you need packaging. And you have basically two options. You can buy a piece of packaging, own it, put your products on it or in it, and then make it move across the supply chain. Oh, and then at the end of the supply chain, you dispose of it or recycle or sell it. But normally these pieces of packaging many times end up in landfills. Or you can rent a piece of packaging from someone like us and make sure that when it finishes its flow across the supply chain, we collect it, inspect it, and give it to another user of the packaging. Okay, so and we do this reuse model for containers, for pallets, and also for reusable crates. I have described the way to do it. We give it to a manufacturer of fast mover consumer goods. It goes all the way down to the supermarket, and then we collect it and it's reused and reused again. If now you multiply that by 300, more than 300 million, you will see the scale of what we do. Okay. As we speak today, there are hundreds of millions of pieces of packaging that are moving, that we own, we will collect, and we will make sure that tomorrow there will be another person using them. It will not go to landfill. There will be no need for recycling. So in summary, our business model is a service business model. I have to highlight this. We don't sell anything. We provide a service. It is based on reuse, as I said. And it is also an example not only of the reuse economy, but of the share economy. The beauty of this model is that the whole community of manufacturers and retailers shares the use of these pallets and containers. Today, there could be one manufacturer using our product, and tomorrow it can be the competitor of that manufacturer who is using that product. I have also, just to justify our license to be here, although we have a lot to learn, but it was last year that because of this reusable business model and because of our sustainability program and the achievements around it, we were named by Dow Jones, the Dow Jones Magazine Baron, the most sustainable company globally, as Pedro said before. So I'm just sharing this with you, not just to show off, how great our sustainability program are, but to see the power of reuse. The reuse is not something that it could be, if you want to be leaders in sustainability, definitely that's something that you have to consider. It's not just something to make some theoretical exercises. This is the future, and we see that leaders in sustainability really take the reuse route. I was also very happy to see this vision when the vision of the Pacto when I was invited, and because for me it really hits the nail. It really is a vision that I will sign for. And what I like about it is two things. First of all, that it shows and it mentions the circular economy. And this is good because circular economy for me and for everyone who works in this area really mixes or really brings sustainability and business together. It's about business models. It's about making our business fabric more powerful. It's not just to do sustainability for the sake of doing sustainability. It's making sustainability sustainable, linking it with the business. That's what the word economy is for. And then it mentions where plastics never become waste. And I like that. But first of all, that is part of the circular economy, that plastic is not waste. Plastic is a resource for the system, is a nutrient for the system. But also it doesn't say we want to eliminate plastics. I don't think that's the path. I mean, it's about treating plastics in the right way. I don't think there are good or bad materials, I will say later. Every material has to be used in a certain way. And for me, it's very important that plastics don't become waste, but I wouldn't go as far as some people say lately as let's avoid plastics forever. No, for me, that is not for me, and for the sustainability community in general, I would say that is not the solution. Having said that, of course, we need to recognize and we need to acknowledge that plastic is a big problem for the world. Okay, climate change is probably the number one, or well, we won't do rankings here, but climate change is a huge problem for the world. And plastic waste is a huge problem for the world as well. I mean, we have so many examples of why the plastic waste is really becoming a critical thing for our future in the planet. I just put there one example. You just need to Google plastic waste in internet, or go to any of the United Nations or Greenpeace reports that are published every year. And you see the terrible effect of plastic waste in the societies and in the planet. And just this fact, more plastic than fish will be in the sea by 2050. Today, as we speak, there is an island the size of France. Actually, it's not the size of France anymore. It's the size of Germany, because it's growing and growing and growing in the Pacific Ocean that is causing huge environmental impact. And this is not just about the planet. Also, there was a recent study from the university in Vienna, in Austria, that they made a simple experiment. They took 30 people, I believe it was, and they analyzed their feces, their stools, inside of them, what there was inside of them, and they found plastics and microplastic in each one of the people in the study. Extrapolating that, we could assume that everyone in this call, each one of us, has plastics and microplastics inside of us. I don't know about you, but I don't want to have that inside of me. So again, you can do these things for the better good, for the great good of the planet, or even for a selfish reason, like I don't want to be contaminated myself. But we need to take action on avoiding plastic waste, as the whole world is saying. Last year, we have this, every year, United Nations organizes a World Environment Day. It's on the 5th of July, around the 5th of July. And last year, it was the year against single plastic use. And I want to highlight as well that because there was a lot of confusion, and this is stressing and highlighting what I said before, that it was not the day against plastics. Okay, United Nations, together with many different NGOs, etc., put together this thing against, I highlight, single-use plastics. And actually the claim for fighting the plastic waste and single-use plastic was the one that I have on the screen. If you can't reuse it, refuse it. So we are seeing now what, I mean, this Pacto is for plastic, for avoiding plastic waste. And we can see that even United Nations, apart from the NGOs and many of the different stakeholders, this is the way they are taking, not avoiding plastics, making sure reuse is part of the solution. Of course, when we read this, we were very happy, because this is what we have been doing for years and years and years, promoting reuse models versus single-use models. There is a question. Our products, our pallets, our crates, and our containers, they are made basically of two different materials: wood or plastic, timber or plastic. They are B2B. I hope that it was clear for me, my explanation before, but they are B2B packaging, pieces of packaging. And we have the plastic version and we have the wood version. And externally, and sometimes even internally, I get this question every day: what is better, wood or plastic? In terms of sustainability, JJ, call me JJ, you are the sustainability leader of the organization. What is the best material for it? And I always say the solution for this question, the answer to this question, is reuse. This is not about the material. It is about the operating model. Wood can be a terrible material. We just recently got, by the way, 100% certified timber. All our timber globally is sustainable. And because every piece of timber that we put into the system is sustainable, and then we reuse it, it's a quite good material. But if we were going to buy criminal timber and then just use it once and then dispose the pallet in a landfill, then it will be a quite bad material. The same applies to plastic. Plastic can be a very good material. Ideally, if you take existing plastic waste, you make a product, then you reuse it and reuse it and reuse it over again. And then at the end of the life cycle, you make sure that it goes to a different utilization. Recycle or upcycle or turn into another product that can be reused again. You put it back into the system. So again, I know I'm repeating myself, but this has to be very clear. It's not about the material, it's about the business model, the operational model. And all these things that we are discussing, are part of reuse, recycling, and we will go into that now, are part of what we call the circular economy. That is part of your vision. It's part of what you want to do. And maybe for those of you who are not extremely familiar with the concept, I have to say that What is circular economy? Well, circular economy is an alternative to the way we have been doing things for the last century, I would say. And for the last couple of centuries in the Industrial Revolution. And in the last couple of centuries, what we have done is to use what we call the linear business model. Take, make, dispose. We take resources from the planet, we make objects, we make goods, and then when we don't like them anymore and when they become old, we just throw them away. And this model, with Industrial Revolution and the automation and the mass production, has been extremely effective if you want to make a lot of things. There is this piece of data that says that before the Industrial Revolution, an average European citizen could have like 100 objects. So now, today, in an American household, you have 300,000 objects, different objects. Imagine how successful this has been. But it assumes two things that are no longer valid. That the planet can give you infinite natural resources, and that the planet is an infinite landfill. This system is being broken from the inputs and from the outputs. The circular solution is a solution, the circular economy is a solution to this. It's about, okay, if we have problems with the inputs and problems with the outputs, let's close the loop. Let's make that the outputs are really inputs to the system, that the waste is no longer waste, is a nutrient to the system. I recommend, I know you are in alliance with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, so probably most of you or all of you will know the famous butterfly diagram that shows you that first, this can be done. There are ways. You have the production now in vertical, the production systems in vertical, and you can close it, okay? And the typical thing that everyone proposes when we are trying to make a system circular is recycle. Let's recycle. That's great. And let's recycle. We've been doing this for years. We know how to do it, and we need to take it to a different scale. But what this diagram tells us as well is that recycle is not the only solution. There are more. You can recycle, refurbish, remanufacture, reuse, which is what we do. You can do maintenance, and that for technical materials. And there are other solutions that you can use as well for the biological materials. And so the first takeaway about the circular economy I want to share with you is that, first of all, there is more than recycling. Please think bigger. And the second thing is that not every solution is the same here. There is a hierarchy. In this diagram, the inner loops are more beneficial or more positive than the outer loops. In other words, reuse, because it is an inner loop, is more positive than recycle, that it's an outer loop. And I'm not saying this because I'm from CHEP, a company that reuses. It's the circular economy theory that in reality is a transformation of the classical reduce, reuse, recycle, the environmental hierarchy that we've been hearing about for many, many years. Good. So, especially if we talk about packaging and about industrial packaging, B2B, which is our area of expertise, the general claim, which is absolutely true, is that reuse is better than recycling. Okay, and I will repeat that a lot of times because I think we really need to change our mentality. Now, it's reuse always 100% of the cases better than recycling? The reality is that no. There could be some exceptions to this, and the professionals who work in the packaging industry know about this. Probably in terms of natural resources and in terms of waste, the general claim reuse is better than recycling always applies. You know, if you reuse something, you generate ultimately less waste because the number of times you can recycle something, except for glass, is really limited, and less natural resources for the same reason. In terms of CO2 and climate change, I would say that this generally applies, but not always. For example, imagine this example where you want to use a piece of packaging, some packaging, to send something from China to Lisbon, okay? And then when it comes to Lisbon, there is no one who wants to take that piece of packaging back to China, and then you put it in a cargo, in a ship, and take it back to China empty. If you do that with the long distances, probably in terms of CO2, that's not a very good idea. And probably it's better to recycle that piece of packaging when you're in Lisbon. But so if you want to do this, you need to have under control the return distances. And you can have that in two different ways. The first of all is that making sure that you operate regionally, and that's the way we operate in Brambles. We have global presence, but normally the fast mover consumer goods that move in our packaging operate regionally. And secondly is the concept of sharing. You know, imagine that example that I gave you before about China. You know, if that piece of packaging that comes from China to Lisbon, rather than the owner of the product bringing it back to China, you know, it is shared by another person who wants to send something back to China. Then it becomes more beneficial. So, and this is one of the levers, and this is one of the secret sauce to make a reuse model work. Logistics, reverse logistics, and transportation distances, and ultimately what we call the network effect. A dense network allows you to reuse more effectively your packaging, therefore being always positive when you compare it versus recycled options. And well, I have to say that also one of the first things that we did when we started with the current phase of the sustainability program was to take a look at our impact in the world, this thing of reuse versus single use, reuse versus recycling. And we went externally to make some calculations, to do some life cycle analysis every time. If you are going to talk about environmental benefits, of course, you know that. I think there are some sessions planned for life cycle analysis, but you really need to pay attention to the whole life cycle, not just to a portion of it. So what we did is to compare our reusable solutions, those hundreds of millions of pallets moving and being reused every day that I mentioned before, against the market alternatives, exchange pallets or disposable pallets that don't really belong to anyone and normally end up in a landfill. And we see what our impact in the world is in the whole life cycle of the product, from the beginning of the supply chain, in the case of the wooden pallet from the forest, to the end of life after being reused many, many times for many, many years. And the numbers that you see on the screen, those are externally certified numbers of our activity. You see that if you care about the environment and if you are a sustainability professional, then you will see that the impact you can have in the world is quite big. We are talking about millions of trees and millions of tons of waste avoided with a circular business model like ours. And I will bet some money, I can tell you, or I will bet that if someone is successful with establishing a circular business model for something different at the scale that we have today, they will achieve similar results, which is exactly what the world needs today. And of course, here the economic results go hand in hand with this. I mean, our company is a company that is successfully globally. It is in the Australian Stock Exchange, and it helps reducing costs, not only environmental impacts, but costs in our customer supply chain. This is where sustainability and business, environment and finance go hand in hand together, reducing costs for our customer supply chains and reducing also the environmental impacts for our customer supply chains. That's the beauty of reuse. A couple of thoughts now let's go into the specifics, some things that probably someone who is not very close to reuse models know. There are some characteristics on the reuse models, definitely for packaging and definitely for B2B that applies to successful business models. The first that I wanted to discuss is this idea of product life extension. This is the contrary of program obsolescence. You know that, well, some of us are really tired of buying things that then they get broken in 1 year when they could last forever. Why? Because the manufacturer wants you to buy a second version of the same thing that probably you don't need. So it's in the benefits of the producing industry that things don't last very long, because for years and years and years that has produced that those manufacturers, that part of the industry sells more. If you have a reuse model, actually your business interest will be in the opposite direction. You will want your product to last longer, because then you don't need to buy a second one. And that is the characteristics of business as a service models. If I sell you a pallet, probably, you know, if you lose it, I can be probably quite happy because then I can sell you another one. But if I rent out a pallet to a customer, then it's in the interest of everyone, for cost reduction for the customer, for us, because I don't have to buy another pallet, and then for the planet, because the environmental impact is lower, that product lasts. And they go hand in hand, the life extension and the product as a service. The one without the other does not really work very well. And of course, the concept of sharing, because if we are able to just not to create a solution for one customer, but for a whole community of customers, then we have a huge amount of efficiencies that arise by this sharing and the optimization. Okay, now, there is one thing that is sometimes forgotten, is that for these kind of products to work, and I'm not talking now about CHEP, about Brambles, about our own pallets, for any reuse business model that is based on the product as a service, we need legal title protection. We need that product, that asset, that pallet, that container, that piece of packaging, as it moves through a supply chain, the legislation recognizes that it is the property of the one who gives the service. Otherwise, if that pallet or that asset is stolen or lost and you cannot recover, it doesn't really work. So this is the first thing that, as part of my job, I'm also doing government affairs in Europe and in the different countries. And this is an active dialogue that we are having with the European authorities. And it was kind of an eye-opener for them when we started to say about that. It never occurred to them that this could be something critical, and it is critical. So, and this operates at European level, but at member state level. So for those members of the government or governmental associations who are in the call, if you want to promote reuse models, and hopefully you want, because it's really good for the environment, then I will encourage everyone to protect legal. I would like also just to show you on the screen, because this is probably material for the Q&A at the end of the session, the barriers and facilitators. And also would like to mention legislation, not just about legal title, but about the fact that we sometimes find that legislation is designed with the best possible intention to promote recycle, which is good, but rarely with the intention to promote reuse, which is even better. So there is the responsibility of every one of us, the reusers and the governments and the NGOs, to educate each other. So legislation appropriately, at the very least, does not create barriers, but hopefully it will create some incentives for reuse models to. Another interesting concept is that, well, this is, it's quite difficult, I will say. I mean, there are many barriers when to start a circular business model from zero, but two reflections there. The first one is that if you do it, if you're able to do it and you overcome those barriers of the reverse logistics, the ownership, the control of your assets, etc., then you are in a great position to build other circular business models on top of the foundational circular business model that you have. It's what I call the circular ecosystem. The first step is quite difficult, but after that, you are in a position to take the next steps in a much easier way. So that is the first reflection. And the second reflection is that if you don't have a circular business model today, but you want to create one, a recommendation will be to find an ally, find a partner that is already circular, because then you can leverage the circular foundations of that partner. And we are here also to offer help in this situation. So we already have these circular foundations, and what we are doing now is to establish the possibility to make alliances with the market community. I just want to announce that probably some of you know about that going beyond pallets and going beyond containers, we recently launched a program called Zero Waste World, exactly for doing that, to use our circular advantage to establish partnership to eliminate waste, eradicate empty miles also, because with our transportation networks, we can see where products and pallets are going from and to. Therefore, we are in a quite good position to see where the efficiencies could appear, could be, and having conversations with manufacturers, retailers, and ourselves to optimize those flows. And finally, cutting out efficiencies through the digitalization of our pallets. A little bit about the future, and I just leave this. Okay, this reuse business model and our objectives have made sure that we have become leaders in sustainability globally. And also an important element for the sustainability professionals who take this seriously is to see what is the future gonna be like. And I don't think in the future, it's going to be enough to reduce the bad environmental impacts that we make on the environment. Okay, it's not enough to reduce the bad things we do. We need to think big if we want to be leaders in this area, and think how to build a supply chain that is regenerative in a circular way. A supply chain that, rather than consuming natural resources and generating waste, is a supply chain that consumes waste and generates natural resources, okay? In our case, for example, as I said before, we made sure that every piece of timber that we buy is certified, so there is reforestation behind it. We cause zero deforestation, but in the future, we will make sure that for every piece of timber that we buy, we will make sure that more than one tree is fully grown, therefore making the forest mass of the world grow. And if we apply to plastics, which is the topic for today, we will go from the advantages of share and reuse plastic products to a model that it is even better. It's not just about the reuse. What is the input material for the plastic products, for the plastic pallet? It's made out of post-consumer plastic, post-consumer waste, or post-industrial waste. Then we will be upcycling, taking care of the existing waste into a product that can be reused and reused and reused. And by the way, at the end of the life cycle, it goes back into the system. A perfect example, not just of a circular economy, but a full closed loop design product. And another thing to think about here is a key question. In this diagram that we have here, you have two elements. You have the element of reuse and the element of the input, the plastic materials to build your product. And sometimes there is conflict here. Today, the recycling technology and the upcycling technology is not fully developed. I expect a revolution in the next 5 years, but it's definitely not fully developed today. And we see that today, we want to do this. Okay, we want to do this and we will do this. This is our, in September, we will publish our 2025 targets and we go in this direction. But as we speak today, there is a conflict there, because if you make your product out of virgin material, you have normally high resistance. If you mix some post-consumer or post-industrial waste, you can still keep the high resistance. But today, if you go to purely, for example, post-consumer plastic, then the resistance of the asset goes down. And then you have to balance what is more important, to be able to reuse more times, so the pallet or the container does not break soon, it lasts for years and years and years, or the input materials. First of all, we want to do both. Okay, so we also will contribute to develop the technologies to do both. But today, what we are finding is that for some of our products, if we have to choose, although we have already some products in plastic products in the market that are made out of recycled plastic, but if we have to choose, we normally promote reuse. Through the whole life cycle analysis, we have seen that the environmental impact of reusing more versus using more recycled or upcycled plastic is superior. It's in principle better to be able to reuse more, but as I said, we need to develop the technologies to make durable products, so we have both things, upcycled and eternal, ideally. I'm going to finish now and open the Q&A, if that's okay, with some hope, with a carrot and the stick, I will say. Okay, and then the carrot tells me this is a study that we participated in from last year from Newsweek, the magazine, the report Going Circular that I recommend. And well, the bad news for the report is that the supply chains of the world today are 9% circular only, in part because reuse models are still not there. The good thing is that in 5 years, 77% of companies, of the CEOs of big companies around the globe, committed to have circular targets. So again, we are still not there, but in 5 years, hopefully we will be much more circular than we are today. And just to finish, I want to share something that I saw in the press last week. BlackRock, BlackRock is the biggest financial assets company in the world. I mean, the company that invests the most in different companies in the world. If you are in the stock exchange, you probably want to listen to BlackRock because, again, they are the biggest potential buyers in the world. And they have a very active approach to sustainability. You will think that, well, these guys probably only think about financials because that's what they are here for, to make money. But they actually have a really strong approach to sustainability. A couple of years ago, they made this statement in a famous letter from the CEO saying, hey, if you don't take sustainability seriously, we might exit your company. We might sell your shares. And now we are going even one step forward, one step in that direction. And they have communicated to the world that this year, last year, they have voted against the executive team or more than 20 companies that didn't take sustainability and climate change seriously enough. Okay, so it's not just words. It's not just words in a letter. The biggest financial asset company in the world is taking action against companies, like companies of us, the people in this call, who are not taking sustainability, and I will say climate change, circular economy, reuse, etc., because everything goes together. And if CEOs and the executive team does not take this seriously enough, they can be out. So again, we can do this for the right reasons, which is we have a responsibility to the planet, or we can do this for the reasons of making just our company financially more successful. The beauty of circular economy and the beauty of reuse is that you don't have to choose. You can do both things in one. So yeah, I stop here. Went a little bit over time, Pedro. Sorry about that, but hopefully we can have now some Q&A.
Thank you very much. And this is exactly the handing of this amazing presentation, that you can do both. You can be a sustainable, but you also can be a profitable business. And thank you very much for sharing this with us. Most of the people who are present today already knew that the current business model of CHEP, but it's great to know that you want also to move a step forward and make a regenerative economy. And I would say that on the side of plastics, I think we are on the same train towards this vision of a more circular plastics and a more circular plastics economy. So thank you very much. And I will open now the floor. We have around 15-20 minutes for questions and answers. And I'll just ask the present people today, if you want to make a question, just use the chat box, or you can raise the hand option, and we will enable your microphone for you to make your question. So we already have one question. Juan, I think you have access to it on the chat box.
If you can summarize it for me, yes, I will appreciate that.
So Nuno Santos from CHEP have a question. Is collaboration a key factor in the circular economy? During the presentation, you have shared some of the barriers in the circular economy model, how CHEP has overcome these barriers. So I think it's two questions, the case for collaboration and the case for how CHEP has been overcoming these barriers throughout the years.
So the simple answer for whether circular economy, whether the concept of collaboration is important with circular economy is a huge yes, absolutely, of course. And this is true for, I will say, for at least for two different reasons. The first of all is that circular economy by nature is a systemic view on the industrial system. Okay, is that you cannot get up in the morning and say, I'm going to be circular, just me, myself at home with this portion of the supply chain that I control. Circular economy, by definition, if you see the graphic from the Element Foundation, it's from the very beginning, from the design to the manufacturing, etc., 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 and then all the loops that go back to the original point. So I think today is very rare in the industry that you have a full vertical integration in your business model. That rarely happens. If you are one of those few companies that control everything in your supply chain since the very beginning to the very end, probably you could avoid collaboration, but I don't even think that there are some that exist in that pure way. So yes, you need to change, or you need to make sure that every step of the supply chain where you operate contributes to the circularity of the whole system. And we can call it agreements with customers, or procurement practices, or collaboration. I mean, that's another way to say it. So first of all, it's absolutely needed if you want to change a system, if you want to have a systemic view on the system, to collaborate with the other steps of the supply chain. That on one hand. The second thing is that even for your existing supply chain, even if you ignore your existing supply chain, there are other opportunities to collaborate using your circular credential or your circular intention with other partners that maybe are not part of the supply chain, to make your circular journey more efficient. And that's what I was trying to say before when I say, well, if you're not a circular company today, and maybe the effort to get circular is just too big to do it in a couple of years, look for a partner who is already circular. Okay, let me give you an example of the program that I mentioned before, Zero Waste World. And one part of this program, let me see if I get there. Okay, one part of this program is about, let me give you the example of transport collaboration, okay? And companies want to reduce CO2 emissions and want to reduce, normally companies that take sustainability seriously and want to get more circular and want to reduce empty miles that produces carbon emissions, which is a type of waste, etc. And you can do that in many different ways, but one excellent way to do it is to try to find someone who you can collaborate with, and you can increase the efficiency of that transportation. Typically, it happens many times that transport goes in full in one direction, but it comes back empty. And maybe there is another person in the world, in Portugal or whatever, that goes full in the opposite direction and comes back in the first direction. If you are able to find who that partner could be, you can operate in a circular continuous loop with virtually or eventually maximum efficiency, reducing empty miles to zero and increasing the truck transportation. And so how do you do that? If you are a manufacturer, you probably don't have visibility of all your flows. You can find someone like us. That's why we offer our circular expertise, because we have this network of share and reuse efficiencies and reverse logistics, which is critical for the circular economy. Because we have that, we have visibility of all the flows that come in one direction and in the other. And we can coordinate, we can orchestrate for other partners to optimize their supply chains, their transportation activities in particular. So that's a kind of collaboration with us and collaboration amongst them. Something that is very difficult if you try to do it just yourself. In short, collaboration is absolutely the key for two reasons: the whole systemic view to your supply chain, and secondly, even out of your supply chain, the world is full of opportunities that you can only leverage if you find another partner to do that. And maybe, sorry, I get excited with these things because collaboration is quite a good topic for us. And I will say that we have now, it's the time for collaboration. Since recent years, we've been talking, I've been working in supply chain for 2 decades, I have to say. And the concept of collaboration was something that I started to hear 20 years ago, but it never really happened. And it was not about the technology. It never really happened because the market was not prepared for it mentally. There was no trust. Collaborating means trusting your partner. Sometimes open part of your books, sometimes showing what it is not working, so then you can find solutions together. And I think now, finally, well, since a few years ago, but definitely it has taken some time, more than technologies, etc., it's the concept of trust that is that has been a game changer for this collaborative approach.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me okay,
yes,
by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have a lot of windows here that are telling me things. I don't know what they are, so if
okay. Thank you very much. So we have a lot of questions. So I'll pick one from the Portuguese NGO Zero from Susana Fonseca. I would like Juan to explain further the need for legal title protection of reuse.
Thanks for the question, because that is for us one of our priorities. Okay, in simple words, if you tomorrow, I mean, and let's not just about ourselves, because I think it's more interesting if we talk about an entrepreneur that tomorrow wants to start a new business model, a new reuse business model. You know, imagine someone who designs this great bottle, bottle that it's eternal, that can be reused and reused and reused, or another piece of packaging. If you want to put that into the market, if you got going for a reused product as a service approach, then what happens is that at some point, the bottle is yours and you rent it out. And then when you give it to a user, it's out of your control, but still is your bottle. And you will expect that bottle will come to you, a bottle or a container. Let's put a container or a bottle. It will come back to you at some point, so you can reuse it, maybe with another potential user. And what happens is that, well, if those pieces of packaging are stolen or are left on the street, or they are in the hands of businesses that have no high morals, and they want to just make pieces out of it and sell it, if you need to have a piece of legislation that protects your ownership of that asset, that if someone steals that, they will be punished. As I have a watch here, if someone steals my watch, that hopefully they will be punished, because otherwise that will be incentivized. That's what we mean with legal title protection. For any reuse model based on a product as a service, if the assets are stolen or broken up in pieces or sold for a different purpose, the ownership of that asset needs to be defended by the legislation. It needs to be defended. Otherwise, the rental models will not work. So I hope, Pedro, do you think that that answered the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have another one. So from CHEP, Lucia Costa asks, for a company that is considering implementing a medium long-term plan to convert its linear economy model into a circular one, will this transition require a lot of investment, a lot of time? And taking this question, I also want to know a little bit more of the experience from CHEP that was established for a long time. So how this process work, this transition?
Yeah, and I have to say that, I mean, the founder of CHEP have a really good vision, because he started a circular business model even before the concept of circular economy was invented. So, but I will say that if you try, and I don't have the final answer for that, I will say I have some answers for this. I would say normally when you talk about companies trying to be circular, you have two different universes, two different areas. You have either big companies that are linear, that have been linear, and they want to be circular. And frankly, I would say basically every company that today, every producing company that today takes sustainability seriously, I have seen that they go in this direction. That is difficult to do, and they normally have two approaches. The first one is to make small circular projects for parts of the supply chain, and that is great because it can be an incentive for an inspiration, a way to learn, but very rarely they create systemic changes. And the other option for these big companies, as I said before, is to go for the whole supply chain. And as I said before, not many companies have vertical integrations. So we go again to the area of let me try to explain this, to the area of collaboration and to the area of partnership. If you cannot control your whole supply chain, to make it circular, if you find a partner who is already circular, acting in the whole supply chain, then you can make it easier. Going back to us, imagine, the whole market is now interested in having a new kind of product, of packaging product that is circular. We as partners are probably in a better position to make that piece of packaging for these companies and for a whole market more circular. Again, we go to partnership and collaboration. And this is not just about us, because then I link with the second part of what I was saying before, is the startups, the small companies that I see a lot of companies with great ideas, with bright ideas that they want to be circular, but they have difficulties to scale up. They have difficulties to scale up for all the barriers that I said before, the size, the network, the critical mass. So also them need the help, or the collaboration from the big companies. So yeah, I think that combination, partnership and collaborations, using the circular strengths with each other, normally can contribute to solve the problem.
Okay, thank you. And so one that I think it's important, and maybe a question for most of the people present today. So for the Zero Waste World program, is it possible for other organizations to join this program? And if so, how can they do this?
It is. I mean, this is a program that we put together exactly for that purpose, to collaborate with our customers in these areas. So yeah, in principle, if you want to collaborate, if you want to optimize your transportation, the empty miles of your supply chain and the efficiency of the transportation first, or you want to explore the opportunity to reduce single-use packaging beyond pallets. I mean, if you want to use a circular pallet or a circular container, we are already here. Probably you are already, because we have the solution. But if you want to develop other solutions for circular packaging, this is where we are here, eliminating single-use packaging and single-use packaging waste. And the third one is the efficiencies through digitalization. And of course, we are here to help. I will say that you can contact, if this is Portugal, the scope, our Portuguese team, and they can introduce you to our Zero Waste World experts. And by the way, we are doing this already with many customers across Europe and North America, which are the two areas of the world where the program is active today. It will be active in the next months and in the next years in every region where we operate. So yes, we are here to listen to you.
Okay, thank you. So I have another one. I'll pick two last questions. So from Ana Carvalho from Secolab, would you consider that trade agreements can constitute a barrier to circular economy? And if so, what do you consider could be done in order to sanate this difficulty?
I definitely think, and I go back to the point of good legislation and bad legislation and no legislation. And I can tell you that, for example, if we talk about trade agreements and we talk about something that kept us very busy in the last year, which is Brexit, you have an example where where the future can really impact the circular economy. Today, there are many things crossing the English Channel in one direction and in the other direction. Actually, there are pallets. Our pallets are crossing in one direction and in another direction. And through the years, because of the trust that the UK and Europe had with each other, that has happened in a smooth way and in a way that could allow circular operation. If tomorrow, when tomorrow you have, boom, a hard border there, with the phytosanitary requirements that were not required before, with controls that basically prevent no risk, etc., just for political reasons, I have to say, of course, there can be an impact on the circular economy. I can tell you that well, this is very technical, but the phytosanitary regulation that will come in UK will oblige that, for example, for pallets will need to be heat treated when there is no risk. Pallets have been flowing for years, and suddenly you have more energy, more carbon emissions dedicated to something that could be solved with a trade agreement. And that on one hand, and eventually stopping or slowing down the natural circulation of pieces of packaging that can make that they are reducing one direction and in the other one. So yes, I think trade agreements in general, but every piece of legislation needs to be designed and needs to be thought under the light of sustainability and circular economy. And I'm glad to say that I'm seeing that in the European Union. As I said before, part of my job is to do that, and the Green Deal and specifically the climate on the action on climate change, but also the circular economy plan. I can tell you that it is the intention of the legislator to build pieces of legislation for everything, attending to those circular principles. Hopefully, we will see that not only at the European level, but also at the member state level. And also I invite here all the Portuguese lawmakers to consider that, because that is something that the world needs. I'm talking purely environmental now, and this purely environmentally now, but also other countries in the world. So yeah, and yeah, especially with Brexit, let's see what happens. Hopefully we'll have a trade agreement that will facilitate not only business, but environmental positive impacts. And well, the negotiations right now are so stopped, I would say, that we need to wait and see.
Okay, thank you. And I'll put the last question and reformulate a little bit one that is here. To most of the companies, of the members present here in this webinar, already embark in some sort of transition to a more circular business model. What would be your major advice to fasten this process?
Let's work together on that, I would say. And again, I know I'm going back to, so let's go together on that. I think there are a few things that we can do collectively. Collaboration projects is one of them, but even lobbying for the right legislation is another one. And when I say lobbying, is just, it's really, and I think that the beauty of the circular business models is that when you are trying to change the legislation to make things happen, what you are defending here is the good of the environment, of the planet, not a particular business interest, selfish business interest, because that's the beauty of circular economy. I will say that you should find the places where this collaboration should take place. You started very well with this Pacto. I mean, I think this Pacto, it's not just about sharing knowledge as we did today. It will go beyond that. But it's about taking action. I mean, just stop talking and start taking action. Probably working group with some specific pilots, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is your partner, I know it very well, and we are part of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And there is a group called the C100 that is dedicated to that, to speed up the action here. So I will say, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone, because there are many solutions out there, and there is a huge willingness to collaborate. The important thing is, let's stop talking and let's start acting. I've been hearing about great ideas for circular economy for years and years and years, but you learn more making something, even if it is small and failing, that making 20 PowerPoints full of great ideas. So yeah, take action, I would say.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for all the presentation and for all your insight and availability to answer all these questions. And I think we have the great ending. So now that we are all stopped talking for this afternoon, I think on the next minute, we hope that we all start acting and make a more circular economy. Thank you so much, Juan Jose. And thank you for all the team of CHEP that made this presentation possible. Thank you all the presents today, and I'll see you, most of them, tomorrow. We will see Patricia Coelho Megale from the Utrecht University explaining business models for reuse and her research in this field. It will be very interesting, and we will see more cases like CHEP, and how are the trends for the future. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Pedro, and please don't forget to invite me tomorrow because I'm very interested in this session.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Oops.